This interview is part of the SSCA Circumnavigators Summit, sharing experiences of members who circumnavigated. All engaged in this project are volunteers providing information solely for entertainment and education purposes. SSCA may edit and publish the interviews in the SSCA Circumnavigation Summit in audio and video formats to benefit its membership and as a recruiting tool. SSCA and participants assume no responsibility for the accuracy or validity of information shared in these interviews. Opinions stated do not necessarily reflect those of the Seven Sea Cruising Association.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the SSCA Circumnavigators Summit. My name is Jackie Lee from Trimaran Sloopmoosh, and I have the privilege to interview some of these special members who have completed a circumnavigation. Many volunteers at SSCA are working hard to make the organization new and fresh and relevant to our members. So we hope you will enjoy this new series. Many sailors wonder what it takes to make a circumnavigation and whether they could do it. We will be interviewing SSCA members who did it. Believe it or not, over 100 members sailed around the world just in between the period between 2001 and 2019. And bravo to them. You will have a chance to hear many varied types of sailors. Solo sailors, families, 2 to 3 year voyages, 20 plus years, international members, former SSCA board members, motor vessel owners, celebrities, and regular sailors just like us. So, without further ado, let's get right to the interview. I'm very excited to have with me today, virtually, by WhatsApp, Joy and Jim Carey from the boat Kelaerin. They are now in Puerto Escondito, in the Baja area, and they are proof that there is life, cruising life, after circumnavigation, because they're still cruising, and they're still having the fun challenges of cruisers. They had to make their way off their boat and into a place where they could get internet connection in order to do this interview today. So we're very privileged and happy to have you both, Joy and Jim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Most people that are listening may not have done a navigation and are wondering whether or not they could do it themselves. So part of this series is talking to people that have done it and seeing that we're just regular people. Okay, so the first question is, can you tell us briefly each of your backgrounds and how you got into sailing?
Okay, I'll let Jim start that one.
My parents had a summer cottage on an island on the East Coast, and I've been sailing since I was a little kid. Sailed snipes and comets and lightnings, and was a Sea Scout, and just continued on till now.
Yeah, actually, I married a sailor. So I never really started sailing until Jim took me out on our first date in San Diego on a boat called Scheherazade, which was a lovely little racing boat, and old wood one. And I fell in love with the boat. I wasn't too sure about sailing, to tell you the truth, because he heeled way over, and I was gripping on with all my strength. You're thinking, we'd fall over, but of course, we didn't, and, just went on from there.
Yeah, the first time you're on a sailing boat and the rail goes into the water, you're usually like, whoa, what is this? That's pretty great. All right, and then, so since you met, you've kind of got into sailing, And did you, as soon as you met and he got you a little bit into sailing, did he propose the circumnavigation to you?
He actually talked about sailing around the world when we very first met. Yes, and for me, it's more going to the destinations than the actual sailing. Although it seemed very romantic at the time, And I learned more about it. We subscribed to magazines and read more about it, and eventually got the bulletins from SSCA and couldn't wait to read everybody's stories. And so that's how, for me, sailing became a dream, a romantic dream, but I was not really thinking we would actually circumnavigate. It didn't come up that way, like we actually planned a circumnavigation. But Jim had wanted to do it since he was a young man.
So what year did you really start out, and from where?
Well, actually, in the mid-'70s, we started building a boat. We built our first boat, a 32-foot sloop, and that was in San Diego, and we took off on that in, 1980 or 79?
Like 79, with a baby daughter.
We had a brand new baby, and so we were originally planned to go down to Mexico, but then decided with a brand new baby, maybe we'll stay along the U.S., better medical facilities and things like that. So we headed up the coast, and we just gone cold up the whole west coast to Puget Sound.
Then is Puget Sound where you started from for the circumnavigation, or you stayed with the waiting until your daughter grew up a little?
Yeah, we hung around up there. I worked on tugboats up there, and we cruised around Puget Sound, the San Juan Islands, the Gulf Islands, and we made a trip down to Mexico on that boat and back up, and then we decided, had another baby along the way, and we decided we needed a little bit bigger boat, so we sold the original boat that we built and bought Kelaerin in 1991. And a few months after we bought the boat, we headed south and sailed down the coast and gone cold through Mexico, Costa Rica, and down to Panama, went through the canal and up to Florida. And by the time we got there, we were out of money again, so we moored the boat there in Florida, and I went back to work for a bit. And then we picked up again.
2002. So we had a kind of a 10-year break from 1992 to 2002 while we worked some more. Filled the cruising kitty, got the kids through the rest of their school. But and then we started again from 2002 in Florida.
Okay.
Well, in the meantime, I got transferred to Puerto Rico, so we sailed down there, and we were on the boat down there for about a year, and then came back up to Florida, put it into storage, and I got assigned to a project in South America, so went down there without the boat, and then came back, and after that, we headed across the Atlantic.
This is nice to hear people that are kind of going around the world step by step. Most people think of it as like, okay, we're going around, and then we go around, because some people, that's the bucket list and they do it. It's nice to hear a different story. Okay, so let's see. Now we're across the Atlantic. Okay, continue on.
Yeah, we spent 4 years, I think, in the Mediterranean. And, so what you do is, what we didn't know is, like you said, you thought you would just keep on going around. But we ended up wintering a lot of different places. We didn't realize the Mediterranean was going to be so cold in the wintertime. So a lot of people just stop cruising and they go into a port someplace, a big marina, and they stay for the winter. So we ended up staying in Spain, for a winter. Then we sailed across and went to Italy and stayed on the Fiumicino Canal. Jim was still working at the time, so we didn't have a lot of time to get in between one place and the other. And then when we went to Tunisia, Jim discovered we had enough money in our savings account. We decided he wasn't going to go back to work because it was kind of ruining the fun. So we sailed from Tunisia up to Syracuse and then Greece, the Greek islands, and then we stayed in Marmaris, Turkey for a couple of winters, and that was a fantastic place to be because it was such an international community. So like you said, we didn't just keep on sailing all the time. We would stay whole winters, and then especially in Marmaris, Turkey, we got together with other cruisers and did an Eastern Mediterranean, we call it a little rally, but it was just 12 boats of a group of friends, really. And we went to Cyprus, Syria, Lebanon, Israel. And then Jim and I turned around in Israel and went back to Turkey to do some more work on the boat. And then the next summer we went up to the Black Sea with another group of friends, a small group of 7 boats, And that was fantastic. They were unplanned in the original scheme of things, but when we got going, it was just these things would pop up, and we go, okay, let's do this, let's do that. So it was great. We had great fun there in Turkey.
And then eventually, did you go back out to Gibraltar and go to the Canaries, and then go that route?
No. By the time we got to the far end of the Mediterranean, we decided, well, no need to backtrack. There's a handy exit right here called the Suez Canal. So we sailed down to Port Said and transited the Suez Canal down the Gulf of Suez to a small kind of a resort town called El Gouna, where they had a little marina blasted out of the reef. And we stayed there for a winter. There were a few other boats, maybe half a dozen other cruising boats, and we all became good friends. Did a lot of diving in the Red Sea. I just had an account with the local dive business. I jumped on the boat anytime I felt like it, and then settled up with them at the end of the season. And it was a perfect place to spend the winter. The weather was much, much better than up in Turkey and anywhere else in the Med. And so we thought, well, if we had known this, we could have come down here for the winter and then gone back up, to the Aegean or Adriatic or whatever in the summer. But anyway, we spent that winter in El Gouna in the Hurghada area, right at the top of the Red Sea. And then our oldest daughter, Erin, she joined us. We sailed down the Red Sea, making calls in places like Suakin and Sudan and Eritrea. We went to Yemen and spent several weeks in Aden, where we took the bus up to Sana'a, the capital, hired a driver with a Toyota Land Cruiser who drove us all around the country, and then headed over to India, to Bombay or Mumbai, India.
Yeah, so by now you probably realize we went around east about, which is, it was unplanned, and but that's the way we ended up doing it.
Wow, okay, that's great. I envy you the diving in the Red Sea. Luke and I worked for a resort, for the Club Med Resort, for about 6 months, and we got to dive there near Hurghada, and talk about fantastic diving. So lucky you had an account, Jim, and you could just go when you wanted. It was wonderful there. Okay, so yes, this is great that you're doing not the milk run that most people do. You did the opposite way around. That's great. If you're going east around, how did you get back across the Pacific?
That was actually the hardest part. Let's see. We left Palau and went deep south. Went down to Papua New Guinea, and then through the Solomons, and then Vanuatu, Fiji. Then we were not going to go to New Zealand because I was actually afraid of that passage.
Yeah.
Some people do decide not to go, but a lot of people were going, and we got talked into it. So we went down to New Zealand. We did it twice. We ended up making that passage 3 times, actually. And then when we left, we decided to leave New Zealand, went across around 40 degrees or something like that. But Bob McDavitt down there, who does the weather down there, told through Northland Radio, told us maybe you better get out of that area and go north because there's a big system coming. So we did, and we made it to the Austral Islands.
Okay.
And not in bad time at all, even though there were days where we were pretty slow, doing 1 less than 3 knots, doing 1 knot, 2 knots. But we made it to the Australs and then up to Tahiti. And then from there we went up to Hawaii, and from Hawaii up to the San Juans.
It's kind of a grind to beat against the trade winds, so you have to go higher, either north or south, to get back. A lot of people go up toward Japan, and then I call it over the top, the North Pacific by the Aleutians.
Nobody's had a really great trip doing that.
No,
Sounded cold.
Never heard of anybody that had a good trip doing that. But since we went to New Zealand, we just did basically the mirror image of that.
Right. Overall, did you ever calculate how many years it took you to circumnavigate?
Yeah, it was 17 years.
Okay.
So it was 1 year to begin with, and then a 10-year break, which we did a bunch of other things, but not really part of the circumnavigation. And then when we left from Florida in 2002, it was another 16 years.
That's great. That's wonderful that you just enjoyed and took your time and just had fun. Kelaerin is the boat that you actually did most of the circumnavigation in. Did you buy her, build her, or was there a certain reason that you picked that boat other than it was larger and you could have the 2 kids?
When we were in Mexico on our old boat, we met a family of 5 on a boat like Kelaerin. And we got to know the boat and the family. We became very good friends. They were from Seattle. And so we really liked that boat. And that's what we looked for when we decided to get a bigger boat. And it turned out that our boat was the one hull number preceding their boat. And while he had ordered his boat, he was pre-building some, shelves to hold radios and things like that. He was coming aboard Kelaerin, which was then called Sandpiper, the first owner, and taking measurements and stuff. So he knew the owner, he knew the boat very well. So it was great to have him as a resource because we have the whole history of the boat from the very beginning.
What is the make of the boat or the designer or?
It's an Omega 45 and built in Taiwan at the Formosa boat building yard.
You spoke about reading SSCA bulletins, so obviously early on you had heard about the SSCA. Do you remember where or how you heard about SSCA and why you decided to join?
It was, I heard about it when I was working in Tacoma on the tugboat. There was another guy who was a cruiser, and he's the one who told me about the SSCA. So we joined just before we made our first trip from Puget Sound down to Mexico on the old boat, which was 1985.
Yeah, so you met a fellow SSCAer, and they kind of convinced you that it was a nice thing to do to get involved with SSCA. Can you tell us any other stories about SSCAers that you met, or cruising stations, or anything else related to an SSCA story?
Sure. Well, one of the things we did when we were in Greece, another sailor came over. I guess we must have been flying our swallowtail flag at that time. And this was in 2004. Yeah, I think probably 2004. And he asked if we were members of SSCA. I said yes, and he wanted to join. So I had a bulletin on board, gave him the bulletin, and I think at that time the bulletin used to print a membership application form in there, and also had the old associate flag. So I just gave him the associate flag. I said, join up. And then he did that, I think mostly because he wanted to. There were discounts offered at some marinas and in Turkey if you said you were a member of SSCA. So I think he got a little bit of a discount at one of the marinas because of that.
Okay, that's good.
As far as cruising stations go, we were in Taiwan, in Kaohsiung, and the man who we contacted there was named Peter Pan. And we tried to convince him to become a cruising station host. I'm not sure that he actually followed through. I hope he did, but he was a very, very busy young man running 3 or 4 different kinds of businesses, including a sailing school. So we tried to, because he had helped us so much, we thought he'd be a perfect cruising station host. So we left him some of the paperwork and who to contact, but I hope he finally went through with it.
He might have, because that name Peter Pan sounds quite familiar to me. I remember that's quite a unique name, like the other guy in Trinidad, Jesse Jones or Jesse James, or so there are a few famous name cruising stations. Okay, that's great. Yeah, it's one of the nice things about SSCA is you can find these little places around the world with some really nice people, and they're so helpful and they're so nice. Do you want to tell us any more about further in your route?
Yeah, we went to, Jim said that we crossed the Indian Ocean. We were going to go from Yemen to Cochin and kind of hang out down there for a while and do some extensive touring of India. But by the time we left Aden, the southwest monsoon? The southwest monsoon had started to kick up a little bit, and so the swell was quite big. We had 10-foot swells coming on the beam, and we just figured we were not going to make it that angle to get down to Cochin, so we kind of thought maybe we'd end up in Oman, and then Jim kind of worked things out navigation-wise, and he said, I think we can make it to Mumbai. So he said, okay, Mumbai's great, So we went to Mumbai, and on the day that the newspapers announced that it was the official start of the southwest monsoon, and therefore lots of ports along the Indian coast just plain shut down. They pull all their buoys, and that's it. You can't get in anymore, except for Mumbai and Cochin. And so we went into Mumbai, realized we were not going to be able to anchor where we thought we were going to be able to anchor because the swell was coming in, and they said, this is impossible, we're not going to be able to stay here. And there was a little, not a marina, but what would you call it, a little port with the tour boats that went to Elefanta Island, all started peeling off the dock right about the time we got there, and one of the guys kind of swung by us and waved his hands in a follow me motion. So we followed him to the back of the harbor and set anchor.
Dow anchorage.
Yeah, the Dow anchorage, that's what it was. And off of, what was it, Victoria Dock?
It was past that.
Yeah, past Victoria Dock. And then we had to get an agent, and the port captain, really nice man, kept calling us, trying to make sure we were all right, and yes, said we're fine. And in the morning they got us into the Victoria Dock, and we ended up staying there for 3 months, I think it was.
4.5.
Yeah.
That's a nice story about some friendly natives that helped you out, and that segues really well into my next question, which is how do you manage to sail in good weather conditions and avoid most bad weather? And do you think it's possible? And what's the worst weather story you lived through? What advice can you give us?
Well, the answer is take your time. Don't have a schedule. And we used to tell people who wanted to visit us, you can pick the time or the place, but not both. we do watch the weather. We sail with the seasons, try to avoid hurricane season kind of a thing. And for the most part, it worked out. But you're always going to get tagged a little bit here and there. We've had been on the fringes of cyclones and things like that were, kind of uncomfortable sailing. But for the most part, you just work the weather, watch it. Sail with the seasons, take your time.
Okay, great advice. Yes, and like you say, that way you can maybe just only end up on the fringe of something, and then it's one of those uncomfortable things, and you go, oh, this is going to be a good story when it's over. So.
Yeah, you can't always predict squalls, of course. You guys know that being where you are, and the squalls pop up just anytime they want to, especially at night. And they can be pretty vicious, and there's just no way to avoid those, actually. So, yeah.
We had several, what people commonly refer to as white squalls. They're basically micro downbursts. And unlike a line squall, it's a black line of clouds approaching. You don't see this until you see white water whipping up, and they're usually stronger than line squalls and can be quite nasty. We had one approaching Bermuda that just totally rounded the boat up.
Knocked us down a little bit.
Yeah, and we had another one off Cape Coromandel, the southern tip of India, that actually ripped the Bimini. For the most part, the line squalls and stuff, you see them coming, you get the wind, first for 15, 20 minutes, and then you get the rain, and then it's over. And so, quite a few of those, a lot of them crossing the Atlantic, quite a few of them crossing the Indian Ocean. And in fact, the wind was so light on our Indian Ocean crossing that it was pretty much the squalls that pushed us across.
Okay, yeah, sometimes those squalls can actually be your friend. Okay, you were talking about the white squall. Is there any kind of, you say they just kind of hit you by surprise. What kind of strategy could you advise somebody to do, or you just take the beating? And how long does it last?
Well, we never figured out a real strategy because you don't know when it's going to happen. So, you can't read for anything ahead of time. We just endured it. They usually last a couple hours and blow about 50 knots or so. So you get hit by it, and laid over, and probably wound up into the wind, and then at that point you take some sails down or whatever. But it's pretty hard to be prepared for one in advance. But
that's good that you just explained. Okay, that first hit, you just don't know it's coming. You take it, and if the sails are correct, you're going to round up into the wind. Maybe get a scare as you get heeled over. Then it's like, okay, let's get this thing, shorten some sails. So great, that's good advice.
Jim, we always shorten sail at night. We didn't want any big surprises at night, of course, if you can help it. So we would reef down and furl up some of the head sail and just take it easy at night.
Yeah, that's good advice. We do that kind of thing too. Unless it looks like days and days of very little wind. Now on to another subject about communications. Obviously, when you started out, communications was a different story than it is nowadays. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of how you stayed in touch with people.
Well, Jim had a ham radio. He has a ham license, and then I eventually got mine later. Early on, we used the ham radio to contact stations, and sometimes they would connect us to friends and family while we were at sea. phone patch, what they used to call phone patch. And then I remember, like when we were first in Mexico, standing in a long line in Cabindas waiting for a long distance, what is it called?
Larga distancia.
Larga distancia, to get on the phone. And they used to cost like $20, which back then for us was a lot of money. So we made very few phone calls, but once in a while you have to call your family and let them know that you're still around. And yeah, a lot of the phones in Mexico were not too reliable. I remember one time we were in Nueva Vallarta back in 1991, the end of 1991, and we tried to find a phone so we found a phone booth, but it wasn't working, and Jim took the phone all apart, rewired it, and got it to work again, on the spot, so that we ended up having a line of people behind us trying to get on that phone to use it.
Okay, I like that. That's a good story. Yeah, sometimes us cruisers, there's some handymen on board that know how to put stuff together. That's a great story. Yes, I remember waiting in the Bahamas, waiting for one of those booths. You'd have to wait for it to ring, and then you would run in there and talk on a scratchy line. Yeah, okay, and as time went on, let's see, what evolved for you as far as communication?
Not much really changed. We got a Pactor modem and just started doing emails, and that turned out to be really great. I used the ham radio and WinLink, and did emails with our friends and family, and also used it to download weather faxes and pages of news and things like that. And that's pretty much what we still do now. I had a sat phone when I was working in Africa, and we brought that on the boat, but never really did use it. I didn't activate it, and with the Pactor modem, it just worked out for us. We're kind of backwards in that respect. I guess everybody has InReach and Iridium Go and stuff like that now, but we don't. We still use the ham radio.
Okay, that's great. That's great to know. Yeah, it was such a boon when the modems came out and we could actually get emails on board. That was such a wonderful thing. And the ham radio guys were they're just volunteers, and they would set up all these stations around, and we were so grateful for them for doing that.
And the other thing that we did was contact maritime nets while we were crossing. So, a lot of them are set up in Hawaii, and there's one here in Mexico, the Chabasco net, and we can get weather information, and even sometimes a little, like if you're a little late on the news, they'll let you know what's going on, and so that's always helpful. It's also when you're making a passage, it's just really great to have a time to talk to somebody somewhere else, and let them know you're okay, and they'll follow you and write down your course and speed and your location as you continue on, so somebody knows where you are.
Yes, I agree that it's always a nice feeling when you're out there to know that there's some nice people there listening for you and waiting each day to hear your voice and say you're fine. Would you advise, like any people that are starting out now, also that the SSB radio is still a good idea and not just trying to depend on Iridium or naturally, if you're going to do long passages, you won't be able to do the cell phone, smartphone, internet thing. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think back these days, fewer and fewer people are using the single sideband or the ham radio. But when I look back, we really met a lot of really cool people through the ham radio. For example, back in 1991, when we were sailing down the coast, there was a net called the Central American Breakfast Club, and there were probably a dozen sailboats that were checking into that on a daily basis, and we got to know everybody on the air before we even met them in person. And a lot of them, we got through the Panama Canal and we're headed up toward the Gulf of Mexico. And one boat had some battery problems and decided to stop at Isla de Providencia. So about 6 other boats decided, oh, what the heck, we'll stop too. So we all rendezvoused there and met everybody finally in person. And we were already good friends from having talked to each other every day for months. And it was kind of fun. We challenged the locals to a softball game. They put up their junior high girls team and whooped us badly.
Great story. And that also is something that fits in with the SSCA and the camaraderie idea that talking like that, you do become friends before you even see each other. So that's a neat story, and I really like that. Okay, I'm going to veer off to a different subject. This was one area that I'm sure people ask you about, and anyone who thinks about going around the world, they say, well, what about pirates? Okay, so we often hear stories of pirates and thievery or burglary involving sailors around the world, and they're always quite newsworthy, and people are always nervous about that sort of thing. Knowing that they are rare, though, did you have any problems with that, or how did you deal with security?
No, we didn't have any pirate problems, but we were burgled, I guess, in the Solomon Islands. But it was more a mischievous act than it was, anything else. It was in the middle of the night. A couple of kids, I think, came on board the boat, and they stole the gas tank out of the dinghy that was upright on the foredeck and cut off some excess line from our reefing lines and things like that. And then we heard them turn the spreader lights on, and they jumped off the boat and paddled out into the darkness, and we could hear them giggling. So it was, wasn't a serious act of piracy or anything like that. But going down the Red Sea, we were a little nervous about that. And so in Egypt, I asked one of the marina employees at El Guna to make a sign for me that in Arabic that said keep away. And so he made this beautiful sign in that Sanskrit. It's a work of art, and I still have it. And so we had that on the side of the boat, so anybody that approached could see that, first off, stay away. And we decided, I bought some bolt rope from a fishing supply store. It's kind of bluish green, pre-stretched polypropylene. It's tough. It's almost like wire, but you can't see it in the water. So I had a couple of those that I could trail behind the boat on a breakaway link, so that possibly if somebody started approaching from the stern, we could foul their propeller. I had a couple that we could throw out the side, and we had some sunshades that were like wings on the bimini that we could tie to the lifelines, and they were those screen-looking things, but denser. They would they would block 80% of the light, but you could still see through them, but you couldn't see in. So we decided that it would be best if anybody approaching the boat didn't know how many people were on board, didn't know if we were armed or not, or anything like that, just kind of keep them guessing. And then I had a bullhorn, the kind the police say, come out with your hands up, you're surrounded, and it had a position on it for a siren that was just screeching. And thinking that the first anesthetic employed by surgeons was loud noise, we thought that might be a little disorienting. And I know setting it off by accident a couple times myself, it was very disorienting. So we had that, and we also had a 2 million kilowatt-hour spotlight that's very blinding, even in the daylight. So those basically were our weapons, I guess. That was our defense against pirates. And but we never had any occasion to use it. Nobody approached. Nobody tried to board. We had that one incident, where the kids stole some stuff off the boat, and that was about it.
Yeah, when we left Yemen, though, the port captain there, because Yemen, when you come out the Gulf of Aden there, that's it's a trouble spot, of course, and we're alone. So the port captain told us, no matter what, who comes to approach you, do not stop at all, And as we were leaving, we got a slight little rain shower. And it was the first rain we had seen in months and months, and so we ran out trying to wash the clears and kind of soap up the boat a little bit. And while we were doing that, we didn't notice, but a fishing ponga came behind us, and we turned around, and there he was, 2 guys in a ponga. And right away we got, oh my gosh, what's happening? And it was just 2 guys who wanted to sell us some fish. But the port captain had told us, do not stop no matter what, no matter who it was. And so we turned around and said, no, you can't come here. And then their faces, we looked at their faces, all 3 of us, standing there looking at their faces, and their smiles just evaporated, because they were just so innocent, really trying to sell us fish. They weren't bad guys at all, and we felt terrible. It just felt awful, to have told them to go away. But that's what the advice was from the port captain in Yemen. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I can understand that that feeling, because mostly it will be innocent people, but you can never know. There are some bad guys that do pose as innocents, and some people have gotten in trouble there. So sometimes it's hard to do that, but it's better to be safe. And I appreciate those little tricks tricks of advice that you use. I think those are good ideas for people to do with a non-weapon kind of defense things. I think that's very clever. So thank you for those ideas. Jim, I know that you spoke about sustaining yourself financially by stopping and working places and getting jobs and that sort of thing. Could I ask what kinds of jobs you did?
I always did the same thing. I went back to the company that I worked for, and it was a marine transportation company that had tugboats and barges and 31 container ships. And so I'm a licensed master and a licensed chief engineer, so there was always something for me to do. Okay,
great. Gee, I would love having somebody like that going around the world with me. You're pretty lucky, Joy. Okay, did you ever see other cruisers doing other strategies that you thought thought were effective or clever?
Well, there were several very qualified cruisers who got into yacht deliveries. We saw a number of that. Some people got into making sails and making upholstery, biminis, and that sort of thing. Varnishing, yeah. And some people would get jobs in restaurants. We saw people get jobs in restaurants, and we were just lucky. By the time we left Tunisia, we just felt if we watched our budget, our bank account, we could probably do it without having to stop to work. So we were lucky by then.
Okay, that's great. So people can realize that you don't have to always have a pot full of money and have all the money you need to go around. You can do some things here and there to keep yourself going?
Most of the time they put their boats up someplace, when they know they're going to run out of money and go back, to their home country, and work for a while and fill the cruising kitty. That's pretty much probably the best way to do it.
One thing you don't want to do is freeload off the locals.
Right.
We run across people who were helping themselves to people, vegetable gardens and coconuts and things like that, and I really don't like to see that.
Right. Those kinds of people are definitely not leaving the clean wake that we all taught to. That's very important. Yes, I remember meeting some so-called Rastafarian cruisers, and that was their thing, oh yes, things are for sharing, but they didn't seem to have much to share with the others. They always seemed to be sharing what the other people had. Yes.
When we went to Papua New Guinea, we stopped at a little island called Minigo. I don't know if you guys have been there or not. It's a wonderful spot, so welcoming. And we had heard they needed batteries, and so we had changed out our start battery for the boat, and we took the old one with us, which is good for still powering lights and things like that. And the first thing Richard and Thomas came out to the boat to greet us, and he brought coconuts and all kinds of things and tossed them on the boat. And we said, well, we have something for you. And we took out this big battery, and his eyes just popped out of his head. He was so happy to get that. Lowered it in his boat, and then we went to visit him the next day and Jim helped him set it up, attach it to a little solar panel, I think.
So we had a solar panel. We wired up his LED lights and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but they never stopped filling our boat. Every time we went to pay a visitor, say hello, they'd fill our boat with fruit and fruits and vegetables and coconuts and made hats for us. Elizabeth was a great hat maker. She made beautiful little hats for us, and it was great.
The teacher at the local school brought the students outside to meet us, and Roy had an atlas and showed them, basically gave the class a geography lesson based on where we had traveled.
Yeah, that's nice. Some of the greatest stories are with sharing with the native people. Is there anything that you would have done differently now that you're looking back with hindsight?
I think I would have started when I was 18.
Okay, that's a good message. Listen up, anybody. Forget, we gotta wait for this, we gotta wait for that. Drop it all, do it now, right, Jim?
Yep. I have another thing I would suggest to people, be more interactive with the locals. Now, these days, we see a lot of people traveling in rallies, and they kind of form groups in the rallies, and they don't seem to really get out and see much of the local color. Some of the best times I've had cruising were looking for boat parts. And that's another thing. When you go someplace on a boat, you're not a tourist, really. You actually sort of become part of the community, because you have to buy food, you have to find fuel, you have to repair the boat, you have to do laundry, and if you're just flying in an airplane, none of that applies. Some of the things, one of the best memories I have is I needed a starter solenoid for, we have a little generator, and we were in Port Suakin in Sudan. And Suakin's an old slave trading port. The auction block and everything's still there. If you look around, you can see that. But I started asking around about where I could go to get this solenoid. So they said, oh, you have to go to Port Sudan. So we jumped on the bus and we went up to Port Sudan, about 20 kilometers away, and went into the industrial section, and I found a shop that repaired alternators and starters and had electrical parts. So I asked about the solenoid, and they said, no, I don't have it, but I know who does. Follow me. So I followed the guy, And he took me to another shop, and it was the same thing. I don't have one, but I know who does. Follow me. So then the three of us go off. And before it was over, I had a crowd of 20 people. I felt like a Pied Piper. We even stopped for tea and and hit, I don't know, dozens of shops and had a great time. It was a party all through the industrial section. Never did find the starter solenoid, but had a great time.
Yeah, I like that story. I like it a lot. And I think people should pay attention to what you're saying there. It's been great hearing the highlights of some these different stories about your voyage. Is there any one giant highlight of your voyage that you think was so memorable that you can tell us about?
Well, I guess our big story was in 2018. We were coming back home. We left Hawaii in May to come up to Puget Sound, and 150 miles short of crossing our outbound path, we got hit by we got into a storm, which hadn't been predicted until it started to show up. And it was much bigger than had been forecast. We got 48, 50 knot winds, and then the seas were over 30 feet. And we got hit by a side wave, something that came off to the side. We were doing okay, but we got hit by a wave at 3 o'clock in the morning and got turned over. And so it kind of spoiled our what do you call it, the end of our trip. And we ended up getting rescued off the boat. Unfortunately, we had to set the EPIRB off, and about 6 hours after the event, the Coasties showed up with a helicopter, took us off the boat. That was the decision that was made by the captain and the Coasties. And then, we were pretty upset, grieving the loss of our boat and the end of our trip ending that way. And 6 weeks later, 6 weeks later, the Coasties called us up and they found our boat and they towed it in. And so we ended up spending a year repairing the boat, and that's why we're now in Mexico. So
wow.
That was a low light highlight.
Wow, that is a story. Yes, I remember reading that in the bulletin, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what a sad thing. I don't remember if in that letter you had found her again already, or whether that was just after you thought you lost her for good.
Yeah, that was after, and I wrote that about a week later because friends were asking, when you feel up to it, tell us what happened. So that's what I did. And it kind of went cruiser viral, went everywhere, that story. But then, like I said, 5 or 6 weeks later, the Coasties found it. And that was another whole... So we got right to work right away, so I was writing no more. We just went to work and spent almost a year fixing her up, getting her back into shape. So we were real happy to have saved her.
Oh, what a wonderful end to that story. That's great. I'm glad that we were able to put that on here because it didn't get into the bulletin. So wonderful. Congratulations. Now, of course, you are cruising again, and you're getting her going again. And what are your plans now, from now?
I think we're going to take it easy. We're getting older. We decided we came down to Mexico. It's warm, it's beautiful, the people are fantastic. We just love the Mexican people. Friendliest people I've ever met probably anywhere. And the food's awesome. And it's not the same as it used to be years ago, but it's still pretty wonderful, and we're enjoying it. And it's fairly, once you get down into the Sea of Cortez, it is fairly easy. It is day sails from one place to the next, and there's plenty of places to stop and hang out, lots to do. And I think we're going to hang out here for quite a while.
Okay, that's great. That's wonderful. Maybe that's an idea. Maybe an idea for us. We never got to cruise that area. After sharing all that wonderful stuff with us, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Well, just get out there. If it's something you're dreaming about, try to make it happen. I know it's hard these days, financially for a lot of people, but you don't need the biggest, most expensive boat. There's plenty of people out here with boats they make work for them. Plenty of people traveling on budgets, sailing on budgets. It's like I said, it's not the easiest thing to do, but you can do it. Take some time maybe to see if you like it. We can't think of a better way to have lived our lives, and we're really glad we did.
Anything else to add to that, Jim?
Not really. I think, we've run across a lot of people in various ports who are still bolting stuff onto the boat. They have to have this and the latest that, and end up never going anywhere. I think just, make sure the boat's seaworthy, and then get out there and do it, and take advantage of the bargains and the opportunities you find along the way. There's plenty out there, and we added an electric anchor windlass in Puerto Escondito in the Balearic Islands, kind of a thing, where we found a good deal on one. But yeah, just go for it and learn how to navigate.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful words of wisdom. We thank you so much for making the effort to get on an internet connection so that we could have this wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed your story so much. And I'm going to make a pause here just to say thanks a lot. You did such wonderful things, and we really enjoyed all your stories, and we wish you the greatest luck in cruising.
Thank you, and thank you guys for doing this summit. I think it's a great idea.
If you enjoyed this interview, make sure to listen to our other guests in the series, subscribe to SSCA YouTube channel, access the MP3 audio recording on SSCA website. Get the scoop on the latest SSCA activities and benefits, read the latest cruiser bulletin, participate in the forum and Facebook group, and please promote our organization to who you think might benefit.